Oi boys, welcome back to another video on the channel. It's about that time of the year for rugby league fans as the State of Origin kicks off in a couple days time. Today, we'll be doing what we did last year. We'll be breaking down the team lists in sort of a head-to-head tail of the tape kind of way with their stats for the season, as well as give our thoughts and opinions on the match coming and to share our tips. So we'll go from 1 to 13 and the bench as a collective. Kicking off with the fullback position, keep in mind not all players have played every round so far, so some stats will be skewed, but we have Kalen Ponga lining up against Dylan Edwards. A little bit of contrast of styles as KP is your flashy, genuine game-breaking type of player. Dylan Edwards is your toiler, your all-rounder type of player that may not possess the attacking prowess of a KP but makes up for it with his work rate and his effort plays. They both come into game one on questionable form, but are the types of players that will rise to the levels of the players that surround them, so definitely players to watch in a couple of nights. Moving on to one half of the wingers, we have Xavier Coates lining up against Zach Lomax, both aerial specialists, but when it comes to the arena, I'd argue that Zach Lomax in his short stints has proven to be way more effective. Not only is he involved a lot more, but his involvement with ball in hand, in my opinion, again, seems to be a little more effective. I think of the two, he is more physical and has a style that is more suited to the arena. And the other pair of wingers, we have Valentine Holmes up against Brian To'o. Like Zach Lomax, Brian To'o's had less time played this season, but in his short return, he showed he was more than ready to don that blue jersey up against Valentine Holmes, a Queensland staple over the years, probably approaching Queensland legend status. Form-wise heading in for a lot of these players, they actually haven't been performing to their standard. In the past though, during Origin especially, we've seen these types of players flip the switch, and I expect nothing less from a guy like Val Holmes, especially being out on the wing again. The centre matchup is probably the biggest talking point of game one as Robert Toya makes his State of Origin debut. After 10 NRL games played, he has been given the task to line up against Latrell Mitchell, a player that's never lost an Origin series he's been a part of, and at this level, hate him or love him, I'd say he's one of the toughest players to defend. Enter rookie Rob Toya, who I believe has one of the better tackle efficiency percentages out of all the centres in the league, or at least out of the centres available for Queensland. Out of all the matchups taking place this Wednesday, this might be at the top of the list, and I do believe Rob Toya has the ability to put a handle on Latrell. The other half of the centres, you have Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow lining up against Stephen Crichton, who I believe is under an injury cloud, and they've apparently got Matt Burton on standby. For Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, since becoming a Queensland Maroon, in 7 matches played, he scored 9 tries, and he has one of the highest tackle efficiency percentages since he started playing at this level. In fact, he's only missed 6 tackles out of the 7 matches he's played. Now that isn't the stats showing behind him in the graphic. I've got their current stats from the season, but yeah. Crichton, he hasn't really set the world alight at this level, but his 2025 form coming into this game, he's been one of, if not the best centres in the league. Moving on to the number 6s, the 5/8s, we have Cameron Munster going up against Mitchell Moses. So for Cam Munster, this is probably the most active he's been heading into an Origin series, which will make him an interesting watch here in game one, especially going up against Mitchell Moses, a player currently in his prime. He hasn't had much game time this season, but as we saw last series, that didn't matter, as he does possess that same type of takeover ability as like a Cam Munster. Daly Cherry Evans with not only his kicking game, but an underrated running game, as well as his ability to catch opponents off guard with a said running game. In jersey 7 for the Maroons, we have skipper Daly Cherry Evans going up against Nathan Cleary. When we talk about players out of form heading into the series, Daly's on that list, and the Maroons are really going to need him to be on his A game, especially when it comes to general play kicking, because he's going up against 2 of the best, you could probably say number 1 and number 2 general play kickers in the league, and not only Cleary but Mitchell Moses as well. Moving on to the engine room, we have Mo Fotuaika lining up against Mitch Barnett. I'll admit, Fotuaika wasn't on my list, but looking at his stats for the season, I could kind of see the logic behind it. Mitch Barnett on the other side has been one of the form front rowers in the comp. At hooker, Harry Grant going up against Reece Robson. I think for the Maroons to have a successful campaign this series, it does start and end with Harry and his ability to get them on the front foot. His fitness for mine is a little worrisome, as he is coming off an injury himself, so for mine he'll be another close one to keep an eye on. As for Reece Robson, he's looked great for the Cowboys, and we all know has a style perfectly fit for the Origin Arena. And my highlights for the matchup in the front row, Tino for Asul Malayawi going up against Payne Haas. There's a lot of similarities between the two, and when it comes to form, they are both red hot at the moment. They are both solid defenders through the middle, they're both physical, and they both have the ability to, at ease, generate second phase play through their offloads. A skill that could very well be the difference and a deciding factor in pressure cooker games like State of Origin. Moving on to the back row, I'm assuming that Jeremiah Nanai, if he is actually starting, will line up on the left as he's been playing on the left this season. If not, I could see Bo Fermo lining up on the left side to start the game and use Nanai as impact coming off the pine. You know, just let Bo Fermo handle all that dirty work, that initial grind, that initial arm wrestle that Origins begin with. I could see them doing that. I'm not set on them running out to the what's they named in the back row. But for the sake of the video, we've got Nanai here lining up against Liam Martin, who has now become a New South Wales Blues staple on that right edge back row. And the other half of the back row is they did name Ruben Cotter. We're assuming he'll be playing on the right. He'll be lining up against Angus Crichton on the left, who has been a staple of sorts, much like Liam Martin on the right. Angus Crichton is somewhat of a Blues staple on the left edge. And despite getting off to, I'd say, one of his worst starts this year at Clubland, he'll definitely rise to the occasion. We're talking about last year's Player of the Series. On the other side of the coin, you have the absolute toiler in Ruben Cotter, who's played a bit of back row for the Cowboys. He can basically play anywhere in the forward pack, and they've got him named on an edge. Looking at their back row selections altogether, they've kind of got the same type of player on both sides of the field. Angus with his attacking prowess, the same with Nanai and Liam Martin and Ruben Cotter being absolute workhorses. And finally, moving on to jersey 13. For the Maroons, Pat Carrigan, and for the Blues, Isaiah Yeo. Like their other middle counterparts, they do share a similar skill set, although I may give the slight edge to Isaiah Yeo when it comes to ball playing ability. In saying that, it's actually a skill set of his that hasn't been effective in the arena, and I'm especially interested to see how the Blues actually use Isaiah Yeo, if they do that pass heavy old Penrith type of play that didn't work for them in the past, or if they'll play like a third front rower. That's pretty much it for the starting 13. For the interchange, I actually think there's a overwhelming difference between the two in favor of the Blues, as I can just see players like Connor Watson, Spencer Leniu having more of an impact when they do take the field. This is coming from a Queensland supporter, by the way. There's just too many question marks in regards to our bench, how they're going to use Tom Dearden. There's always a worry with Lindsay Collins now, and the two rookies. Like I said, Bo Fermo, I think we could potentially see him starting. I'd be more confident with someone like Nanai coming off the pine, as he does have true game-breaking ability. I don't get that out of anyone in this interchange, as harsh as that sounds. But in saying that, it is Origin. At its core, the Origin style of play is very basic, and for the most part, it ends up being a war of attrition where the games can be decided by one error. So having a bench of toilers like Dearden, Collins, Fermo, the jury's out on Loyero. I'm just keeping it a buck. That could work to their advantage. So that was our deep dive into how the players will line up this coming Wednesday. As for my tips/picks, I'm obviously going to go Queensland for the win. We are going 1 to 12 points. I'm going to take a try scorer on both sides of the field. Queensland, the hammer, has never let me down. And for the Blues, I'm going Brian To'o on the sting. And that about wraps up my preview for State of Origin Game 1. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to run a share of that like button, and for more rugby league related content or more content in general, go ahead and drop your boy a cheeky sub. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.